Welcome back. I tell you, people should be looking for a team to join, and I, as a big Seahawks fan, was pretty happy Matt Flynn joined our team, but I digress again, because if I start talking Seahawks, I probably won't come back. When you are trying to find a team to play for, or to have somebody join your team, you need somebody who can really play their role excellently. And when you start thinking about your finances, there's a lot that has to go into finances, and it's not just investments. It's not just saving money. Oftentimes, there's some deeper fundamentals that you need to think about. Mindy Crary joins us. Now, Mindy is a consistent speaker and hosts seminars called Conscious Spending, and really teaches people how to be better with their money, and that one dreaded word that people hear, budgeting. Well, first of all, welcome, Mindy.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm great.
Good. So, talk a little bit about how, your seminar structure, the things you're teaching, and then I'd like to get into this Mint.com, which is something you use.
Yes, Mint. Well, Mint is a tool for conscious spending, and that's kind of a movement that I created on my own, especially with the economic downturn in 2007, 2008. I was seeing a lot of people getting laid off, really trying to tighten their belts, and not really seeing a clear way to do that, or an effective way to build a budget and then stick to it. And what I really believe is that once you understand your behaviors and you understand how your family acts around their spending, you really do become more aware, and you get the best use of every dollar that comes in and out of your household. And so that's really what conscious spending is about. And so what I've done is I do, seminars and free calls, and really give people the tools that they need to get started on that kind of a conscious spending endeavor.
And is this, it sounds like this is kind of for the person who maybe hasn't started a financial plan. This is kind of that first building block almost.
It really is. I tell people that the single greatest indicator to someone's ability to build greater wealth is their knowledge of their cash flow and how effective they can be with it. So absolutely. Although I do say that even if people are making great money, it never hurts to become more conscious about where it's going.
Well, I would say, because, what does everybody say? If you make more money, you probably spend more money.
Exactly. You get lifestyle creep.
Lifestyle creep?
Mm-hmm. That's what we call it. Lifestyle creep is when you get the raise and somehow that great raise just gets absorbed through Starbucks or Amazon or just, eating out, things like that.
Yeah, it is incredible. But somehow when, somebody isn't working or whatnot, or you don't have good months, somehow it does kind of work itself out. You can cut back, and it works.
It really does. I've noticed, especially self-employed people have a really great ability when times are tough to really cut back and live within a certain structure. But then when times are really good, sometimes that extra money just disappears somehow. And it's better to track that and see what the opportunities are with that.
What do you mean by, so Mint.com, and this is the actual tool you would recommend to track, and Mint, I think, is getting pretty big. It's a kind of a phenomenon at this point.
It is. It's huge, and it actually started 5 years ago, and it was independent. It's now owned by Intuit, actually, the people who create QuickBooks and TurboTax and things like that. But what it is, it's comprehensive personal finance software. So you can use it to track not only your spending, but also your investments, loan payoffs. Just you could put any account in there possible. But what I really recommend is just starting on the tracking spending to really gain an understanding about that before you try to, use every single capability that it has.
Is it automated? does it just pull in information from your bank statement? Or?
It is, and it has very high level security, and that's the one objection that I hear when I start talking to people about it, is how secure is it? And it's actually very secure. If somebody were to ever hack into Mint, and it's never happened, they still wouldn't know who you were. So what it does is that it has a read-only connection to your accounts and automatically pulls that in, and automatically starts categorizing it for you, too. So it saves a lot of time that other more traditional tracking programs maybe didn't have.
Or a spreadsheet.
Exactly. Yeah. Spreadsheet takes forever, too. So yeah, a lot of it was really just autopilot. And so it cuts down on the housekeeping side of trying to track where your money's going, and allows you to really take advantage of some of the reporting and some of the visuals so that you can actually have a conversation about the data rather than just focus on getting the data in there.
Right. And that's, we talked about that a little bit before the show, was people who want to budget. The hard part is the numbers. Let's be honest, it's a pain.
It is a
You
pain.
sit there and you go through and if you're working on an Excel spreadsheet, unless you're the engineer type who wants to do it themselves, which we give engineers a hard time all the time here.
Those poor engineers.
They get a hard time from us. But ultimately, if that's something that you want to do, now you can actually look at the data and make strategic or just any type of decision, as opposed to fumbling through the data entry. And it seems like that would be a big advantage for somebody who maybe doesn't want to take the time to budget.
It's a huge advantage. And one thing I notice a lot when I see people saying, yes, I have my budget, is it might just be a monthly budget, or it might just be a checklist of the basic bills. And it doesn't really account for, well, what we were talking about, lifestyle creep. They may think they're spending $600 a month on groceries, but if you really look at the data in Mint, it'll tell them actually they're spending $800 a month on groceries. And it's just, it really does do a better job of accounting for those variable expenses that really is the opportunity for people to save more money.
And then knowing that, you go, okay, we can cut $100 or whatnot, versus thinking about it every time you go to the grocery store. I guess cumulative effect.
Exactly, and not knowing where the extra is going, because most people, when they get started, say we feel like there's extra money in their budget, but then at the end of the month there never is, and this actually pinpoints for them exactly where that extra money is going.
Is this something a lot of financial planners do?
I would have to say not a lot, because I do have colleagues with other broker-dealers, and they're always mentioning to me, oh, this person needs to get a better track of their finances. And I always tell them, just tell them to get on Mint. It's free. Anybody can go. It's awesome. So yeah, I think that this is an area that a lot of people can get started on their own even before they go see the financial planner, potentially.
And so this is what, in your mind, or I guess creates this conscious spender, because you now know where your money is going, right? Or at some level, and I guess if you just use your debit card for everything, that's a great way to track it.
It really is, yeah. The only thing that it has trouble tracking is if you write a check. You have to actually remember what the check is for, so that's another way to be more conscious. But yeah, it promotes conscious spending. What I've noticed in the most effective way is that like that example where I told you that the person thought she was spending $600 a month on grocery and really spending $800. Well, once she sees the black and white, the numbers that she's spending $800, then she gets to decide, oh, do I really want to spend $800 on my groceries, or do I want to spend that more effectively? And so not only is there, more consciousness there, but there's a value judgment there too. She gets to decide the best use of that dollar then. And so for me, that's the real conscious part of it, is that awareness and the value system then built into that awareness. And so
once you put it top of mind, like you said, you now can decide if that's right for you.
Exactly, because then you start building in the awareness and the behaviors. And even then, in this example, when the woman goes to the grocery store the next time, she's probably not going to do as much impulse shopping as she usually does. So it really does not only build consciousness into the review process through Mint, but then through the everyday behaviors that really help you get there.
Yeah, I mean, it seems really interesting, because we talk a lot. We've talked before about finding the money to save, or not being more cautious. Not doing the impulse shopping, the Amazons. But sometimes you don't really know how much. I mean, if you don't track it, you don't even know. And this seems like one of those tools that allows you to at least start. I guess it's almost like budgeting in a rearview mirror.
It really is, and I actually think that's the best way to budget, because a lot of people do what I call preemptive budgeting, and they say, "Ooh, we need to save money, we need to cut back," and so they'll set up an arbitrary budget using numbers that have no basis in reality. And what I really think the best thing for them to do is get started on Mint and let Mint just flow in and do its thing for a couple of months without even looking at it, and then go back and see what you're actually doing, and then you can make better decisions, more informed decisions with historical data.
It's probably one of those things that gets addictive.
Oh,
you start off and you let it go and you don't want to, and then all of a sudden you get a little bit more, because people like to learn things about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of has that feedback loop.
It does, and it's got some great charts and great reports. And I've noticed the more you kind of categorize and help it understand how your spending should be categorized, the more addictive it is to look at those reports. And I tell you, some people pop in to just do categorization for a couple of minutes and they stay on there for 40 minutes playing with their pie chart. So it is really
that's what we need, is we need more addictive online things.
That's right. That are good for your finances.
That's right. As opposed to just shopping, I suppose.
Exactly.
We're here with Mindy Crary, a founder of Creative Money. Mindy, do you think that using a tool like Mint allows you to get more out of your budget if you actually implement it?
I do. I think the first step is actually the awareness. But what I found is that once people have that awareness, they really can't go back to unconscious spending. And they start to get a real idea of what they need to do to build in not just their short-term wants and needs, but also start to plan for midterm and long-term goals. And so they realize, again, with the groceries, I don't want to spend $800 a month on groceries. I want to put that money toward a vacation in 2 years, or I want to do something else. And so, yeah, I mean, the budget really is the foundation to build on every other aspect of your financial life.
I guess, you can trim back on anything, right? And I guess there's that element of spending. So if you know you're doing it, it seems like it's easier to go, no, I'm going to save $200 a month on groceries in this example, versus I'm only going to spend $600.
Yes. And, a lot of people like I call that kind of backing into it, because a lot of people might start out saying that they want to save and set up goals for saving. And then that dictates what their budget actually should be for the rest of their spending. So that is one way to do it. A lot of times if people have variable income, they're uncomfortable doing it that way. So that's another reason why Mint is good too, is they can look at an average spending over time and then get themselves to a number more comfortably than that.
Yeah, and I guess there's those big life transitions, too, that make a big difference. Oh. You add a kid, like we did. We added a kid.
You just added him.
Hi, buddy. You add a kid or you have a child, and now, you do have to maybe balance some of these things, because, you do have to buy certain things for a child.
Yeah, and that's a question I get a lot, is actually, how much do kids cost? And, it's hard to say for sure, because there is some expense offset. Like somebody I was just talking to, she said, well, yes, the kid is obviously, more expensive to have a kid than not to have a kid, but she was going out so much less that there was an offset there. And so she had to revamp her budget because of that.
We almost think that having a kid saved us money, because we're not going out to dinner as much.
Right.
There's these things
drinking.
Yeah, yes. Mm-hmm. All those.
Hard to tote a baby around to the Seattle Seahawks games.
It is. It is. We did it to a tailgate once, and then Mom took him home. And, and here's the other thing. You start thinking about having a kid and conscious spending, the older he gets, the more you realize he doesn't need all those toys. He needs a pot and a pan and a spoon, and he's happy. He doesn't even play with all the trains and everything we've gotten him, which is always kind of funny. Mindy, we just have about a minute left before we have to go to break. Talk a little bit about why you think budgeting with a tool like this works so much better than maybe budgeting without, and maybe why most budgets fail.
I think most budgets fail because of lack of planning, like we were talking about. If people have a monthly budget, that doesn't really account for anything other than their month-to-month expenses. So they're missing out on kind of midterm planning or midterm savings, or even with the monthly plan, sometimes people forget the variable spending. Or some people just have a checklist of their bills, and then again, they forget the fun stuff. I talked a little bit about preemptive budgeting, but then some people just cut back drastically, and I call that kind of crash budgeting, and that doesn't work either, because just like crash dieting, you're eventually going to binge and start spending a lot again. So those are some of the drawbacks that I've seen that Mint kind of helps manage a little bit better, because it is tracking every single expense ongoing.
And I really like that 3-month thing, because if you have variable income, like a lot of people on our show do with financial planning and real estate and mortgage, you can't count on it. And, and every month people in our industries go, wouldn't it be nice to just get a regular paycheck? And then every 2 months later, you're like, no, this is great.
Exactly.
Well, Mindy, thanks so much for joining us. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about being